Once upon a time, in the quiet village of Uturu, lived a woman who had been pregnant 10 times without a child. She was now heavily pregnant again, but something happened that no one could ever explain. It was a calm and warm afternoon, a day like no other, with the calm breeze moving through the entire village as the people went about their activities, not knowing what laid ahead. The young woman, whose name was Ndidi, went into early labor. The first push hit like a thunderbolt in her body, as the midwives did all they could to guide her to safe delivery. Her screams rang through the compound, slicing through the peace like a blade, sweat drenching her entire body as she continued to push hard, feeling the pain course through her body as she let out a loud scream. The baby slid out of her and silence filled the entire room. No cry, no movement, no heartbeat as the midwife looked down at the baby in her arms, hoping that it wakes, but nothing happened. So she looked up at the mother and broke the sad news to her that her baby was dead. Ndidi let out a heart-wrenching cry. She could not believe that her baby was dead, 10 babies dead in less than 10 years. Ndidi cradled her lifeless baby in her arms, her tears pouring down her face as the midwife stood back and watched. Her husband Tochi knelt in the dust outside their hut, pounding his fist into the earth as he cried out in grief. His wife Ndidi carried the baby in her arms as she walked out of the hut, collapsing onto the bare ground. Her body shook with sobs as she raised her eyes to the sky and cried out, "Oh heavens, give me back my child. You have taken 10 from me. Please let this one stay." The villagers gathered as they watched the sad scene unfold before their eyes. Suddenly, dark clouds began to form in the sky, and the air grew thick and heavy. Lightning crackled across the heavens, and the ground began to tremble beneath their feet. And then, babies began to fall from the sky, 10 of them, drifting gently like feathers as they descended from the clouds above. Everyone opened their eyes in shock, too stunned to move or say a word. The babies drifted down from the sky and landed gently around Ndidi, forming a perfect circle around her as she opened her eyes and mouth in shock. Filled with so much terror, the villagers scampered, screaming and shouting that the gods had cursed their beloved land. "Witch, witch," some cried. "This is not a blessing. This is doom," others yelled as they ran back into their huts and locked their doors. Everyone stood by their windows and watched as Ndidi remained kneeling in the midst of the strange babies. Suddenly, a loud cry was heard. It was the cry of Ndidi's child who had just come back to life. Ndidi could not contain her joy. "She's alive," she said repeatedly, as her husband rushed to her side, falling on his knees as he kissed both his wife and the baby. They both looked at the strange babies and felt a peace that they had never felt before. Ndidi in that moment decided to keep the babies. "These children are a blessing to us. They are the answers to our lifelong prayers, and I believe we should keep them," she said to her husband Tochi, who could not help but agree. One by one, they took all the babies into their small hut and laid them gently on the mat, and the babies all drifted into a very deep sleep. The house was quiet, unlike what Ndidi had expected. Feeding and caring for the 11 babies were less stressful than she had anticipated, and Ndidi could not hide her gratitude. The night passed in silence, but by morning the news spread across the village like wildfire. Ndidi had kept the sky babies and the elders could not fathom it. The chief priest of the village was so furious as he believed the children were evil. "These are no ordinary children," he warned, revealing that the children fell from the heavens during a storm of darkness. He called it an omen, and the people clamored for the babies to be sent away, but Ndidi refused. "They are my good luck charms," she told them boldly, revealing that she called on the heavens and the heavens answered. "I have suffered 10 times over. These children came with life. How can they be evil?" she asked the villagers who were not willing to hear what she had to say. All they wanted was the sky babies out of their village, but Ndidi was not willing to allow that to happen. Her husband, too, vowed to protect the babies with all that he got. That evening, the entire village gathered in front of Ndidi's house, determined to take the babies away. As they approached the house, the skies began to grow dark as the people fell into a very deep sleep. All the warriors and villagers who had gathered in front of the house were now asleep. Ndidi stood by the window and watched as the villagers lay on the floor asleep. Ndidi turned to her husband in amazement. "Could it be the children protecting us?" she asked her husband, who turned to stare at the babies who were all sleeping peacefully on the mat. Hours passed, and the people finally woke up from their deep sleep. They stood there confused, as they could not understand what had happened. The skies remained dark, and the people were now filled with terror. They believed that their gods were against them, as crops stopped growing and the rivers slowed to a trickle. No fire stayed lit for more than a few minutes, and each day passed under a blackened sky. The chief priest called for a meeting at the village square. He told the people that the babies were not ordinary babies. They are evil spirits, and until they are cast out, we will never see the light of day again. Fear spread like wildfire, and the villagers decided to get the babies out of their village. They lit some sticks on fire and threw it at Ndidi's house, but the house did not burn. Only the sticks burned out, and the people could not understand what was happening. They labeled Ndidi and her family witches and did everything within their power to stay away from them. Ndidi, however, remained home with her babies. She noticed that the 10 babies were now growing at an unusual speed, unlike her daughter, who remained small like a baby. A week passed, and the 10 babies had now grown into adults. Ndidi and her husband did not know what to make of it. All they knew was that the sky babies were peaceful and meant no harm to them. Ndidi did all she could to speak with them, but the sky babies, now adults, did not say a word to her. She watched in stunned silence as the sky babies stood by the window and watched. They stood there every day, silent, still, watchful. They did not eat. They did not sleep. They never blinked, just watching as though waiting for someone. The villagers, now living in absolute terror, spoke in whispers. No one dared to pass by Ndidi's house. Even the birds stopped flying over their compound, and still the sky remained black like thick ink. Then on the 13th day, something happened that shook the villagers to their marrow. All the children in the village slumped to the ground unconscious. Their parents, terrified to the bones, wept as they blamed the sky children for all that had happened. Panic took over the village as mothers screamed and fathers tore their shirts in grief. Children of all ages held the just moments before, leaning eyes shut as their breathing became slow and shallow. "They have cursed our children," the villagers cried, claiming that the babies had finally unleashed evil upon the children. All eyes turned against Ndidi's house, where the sky children, now adults, stood silently and watched. What would happen next? Stay tuned for next part.